Hello, YouTube social media space. My name is Maddie, and this is my second YouTube video. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, yeah, that's not that exciting. Oh, I just wanted to hop on here and talk about something completely different than my first video. Last year was a pretty rough year for my health. Weirdly enough, I never got COVID. I know it was kind of a weird year for everybody in terms of the pandemic and testing and emotional stress, all that stuff. I had a couple of things happen to me or things that I went through that had nothing to do with COVID that landed me in the hospital, not once, but twice. So I wanted to come on here and kind of do a story time, talk about the two different instances that I was in the hospital, why I was there, and then just comment on healthcare in general in America versus in Mexico, because I was in a hospital in each country. So just kind of comment on differences between them and similarities and how I'd rate them, I guess. I don't know if I'll do a rating or anything, but yeah, I thought I'd be pretty qualified to talk about it because being in the hospital in the middle of a pandemic was a little bit crazy. So I guess I'll just kind of go on the timeline that it started on. And so I'll start with the first time I was in the hospital, which was in September. So, kind of rewinding back, I'll hop right into it. I finished my summer selling books, and that's a whole other video. I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel talking about that experience as well. But I was coming home, and how the program works is that you'll go to a different state, and then you'll always stop in Nashville before you go home. Because the company's based in Nashville, there's a lot of like housekeeping things you have to do before you close out your account for the summer. And so I was in Nashville, and I noticed that my left leg was really itchy. And so I looked down. It was under my thighs. So I was like, because I sit in a car a lot or I'm outside a lot, and so I'm very prone to bug bites. And so I like didn't really think much of it. I thought, oh crap, I got bit by a bunch of mosquitoes, and that's totally normal for me. I'll get bit once, and I'll get bites that are like this big. I kid you not. So I think that I might be allergic to them. I'm not sure. But anyway, it started itching on the drive back, and so I was driving from. It was literally my last day that I was supposed to go to Nashville from. I was in Kentucky, so it wasn't too far of a drive. But right before I left, I saw that there was these bug bites, and they looked pretty red and infected, and not like a normal mosquito bite. They looked different. I'd say it looked like a bunch of like it looked like blood blisters, but they weren't blisters. It was really weird. There were four of them. And then, so that happened on, let's say, like a Friday. So right before I was leaving, Tuesday was the day we were leaving, and I saw that they had gotten worse and got infected. So I had a doctor that I went to a couple times over the summer because I got strep. So what he did was he looked at it and said, "Okay, I'll prescribe you these medications. I'm sorry I had to see you in here multiple times this summer." So we laughed it off. I said, "Okay, cool." And so it was just like, it was a sulfa drug. I forgot what kind of sulfa drug it was. Oh, by the way, I have iced coffee. I'm not a Buckeyes fan, but we just have these cups, so judge me all you want. Um, anyway, the bug bites were itching me pretty bad, but I'd figure. Oh, and he also gave me like a hydrocortisone steroid cream. And so when he did that, I was like, okay, cool. This will fix it. So I didn't think much of it. So I took one or two pills a day for the next week or so. So fast forward to me going to Nashville. These bites just kept getting worse. I was putting the cream on it. I was putting the like I have pictures on my phone, but they were originally like this big, and then throughout the week they kept getting worse and worse. At the worst point, each bite on my leg was about this big, and it was on my thigh. I was like, oh dang, these like this is really uncomfortable because we're supposed to be like it's the end of our summer, we're supposed to be celebrating, having fun, and I just could not stop thinking about these bites that were on my leg because they were really itchy and really dry, which was weird because Nashville's super humid and so is Kentucky. So I just had really dry and itchy skin, and it just kept getting worse. So I'm at check-in. There was a little bit of drinking involved, so that might have made it worse. I would notice after each time I would drink there, because I was there for about a week, like about 3 different times. If I had had like a little bit of alcohol, I'd wake up the next day, it'd be so much worse. So it just kept making it worse. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just. I was trying to tough it out because I was like, I'm going home soon. I hadn't been, because I'm from Colorado. I hadn't been home in like 6 months or 7 months because I was in New Mexico last year. So I hadn't been to Colorado in a while. So I kind of was trying to be like, okay, well, if there's an issue, I can make it home. Like, I was trying to tough it out. And so I guess I probably didn't care for myself as much as I could have. And that's a mistake that I've lived with. And so I'm driving. I have family in Indiana, and so Indiana is like a 5 hour so drive from Nashville. And so after the summer, I planned on going to see them because I hadn't seen my grandparents in a long time because of the pandemic, and my aunt, uncle. I just hadn't seen my family in a long time, so I decided to make a pit stop there before I was going to drive back to Colorado. So I'm driving up, and it just I drove up on like I think a Sunday. I forgot what day it was, but as I'm driving up, it's just really I'm tired and I don't feel great, but usually after every summer I feel kind of that way, like exhausted, and I worked my ass off in the summer, so I felt pretty like tired and not really looking to be super social. And so I drive up to my aunts and grandparents' house and I greet them. It's really fun. We have a good night. I finally kind of forget about all these, like the bug bite situation that's going on. And then the next morning, or 2 days from after that, I wake up and I'm feeling pretty like, but I guess nauseous would be the best term for it. I just felt like I was gonna pass out. Um, and I was like, I don't feel good. Maybe I should lay down for a while. So I'm like chilling out. But we had plans to have brunch that morning. So my grandparents came over and we had brunch. And in the middle of brunch, I like walk up to the guest room or whatever room I was staying in. I like almost fell on the floor. And so I guess I just like yeah, nice. I was feeling my head. Wow, all right. I think I might need to go to a hospital. That was the point where it just kept getting worse. The bites kept getting worse, and I started to feel bad internally. So I kind of pulled my cousin aside. I was like, "Hey, Sean, I think I might need to go to a hospital." And I was super worried because my family cares about me, and I was worried that they were gonna freak out, and I was right. I mean, they freaked out, obviously. But I knew I was gonna be okay. I just wanted to get some medical attention and kind of not feel as nauseous. So I get to the hospital, and it's in Indiana. It's a nice private little hospital. And I get insurance through my mom, so it was nice to not have to worry about that. I know not everybody's that lucky, but I still have insurance through my mom because I'm under 26. And so I went in and knew that it was gonna be okay. So I go in, they give me a bunch of IVs, and they take a look at my bites, and they draw a Sharpie on them just to measure if they like go bigger or if they like continue to get bigger or not. And then they took probably 10 different blood tests. I did not realize that they were gonna go in and take so much blood. I got like 10 vials of blood taken from me, and I'm just laying there like feeling kind of worse than I did going in, just because there was tons of needles sticking in me. I'm not a huge needle phobe. Like I can take a shot or two, but they just kept coming, and I was kind of getting tired of them. But I mean, I knew I needed them for a good reason. So basically what they were doing is they first made me feel better with that. Like they gave me nausea medication, and they gave me, what else did they give me? I don't remember. Oh, anti-itch medication. They gave me like a really strong hydrocortisone, or I think it was hydroxyzine, which is a strong Benadryl. So they gave me that, and I was like, okay, cool. Can I leave now? Because I feel better. And they said, nope, we gotta test you for all these different blood diseases. The first inclination was a tick bite, so they thought that that I got bit by a tick. I thought it might be that at first, but then 4 times, I don't know, because I had 4 different bites, it seemed pretty hard to get 4 tick bites, so I wasn't super sure if it was a tick. The blood test came back negative, no Lyme disease, which I was really grateful for. They tested for so many different things. I couldn't even tell you what they all tested for. It was like yeah, Lyme disease. I think they were testing for sepsis as well, and I think that's why they held me in the hospital. So I actually ended up staying there for 3 days and 2 nights. Or actually, no, it was 3 nights. So I was there for 3 nights uh, before I could even go home. So I was pretty bummed because I was just ready to go home, and I kind of had to force myself to slow down. It was cool because they were really attentive. It wasn't great all the time because I'd be sleeping. They'd come in every 4 hours and take blood, so I wasn't too fond of that. But I understand what they needed to do. I just wasn't super happy about it. They gave the worst part about it all was the blood thinner shots that they would give me. So I didn't know this, and I learned very well at my second hospital stay as well. It's like a little needle, probably this big, not too big, but the needle's pretty big. But they have to give you blood thinner medication if you're laying down for a certain like extended period of time, so you don't get blood clots in your legs or your lungs or anything like that. And I was never aware of this, but they can only give you the shot through your abs, and it really hurts. Like I was fine with all the blood drawn, or blood getting drawn. I was fine with the IVs, but this freaking shot right in your abdomen hurts so bad. Like it stings your entire stomach, and they have to give it to you once a day. Um, I found out later you can get it in pill form, so I'm still not sure why they don't give it to you in pill form. So yeah, anyway, that's just my little rant on the worst part about being in the hospital the first time was these blood thinners they'd give me. The consensus of what happened to me is still unknown. Um, all the blood tests came back negative. All the blood tests came back negative. The cream was they kept using it, and the cream was fine. They said that if I needed to, they switched the medication from the one that the doctor gave me to a different one, and so they basically said if I started to get better after that, and the doctors ended up saying, well, we can figure out what it is if you get a skin biopsy. But at that point, my skin was already healing up pretty well. The bites were starting to get better. And so I declined the skin biopsy. And what they said, because the biopsy, they have to just pull out a chunk of your skin from your leg or wherever you want to get the biopsy. And that did not, I don't know, I was already healing, so I didn't want to rip out a piece of my skin. So after that, they kind of just said, okay, well, we don't really know what it is, why you were here in the first place. My guess is that you were allergic to the first antibiotic that the doctor gave you. So again, the sulfa drugs, sulfa, it's a type of antibiotic. I don't know how it works, so I'm not going to try to explain it. But basically, the doctor said that I'm probably allergic to it, and it's safe for me to always and forever tell doctors that I'm allergic to sulfa medication whenever they're giving me stuff. So yeah, it was pretty much a medical mystery, and I came home, and my parents were pretty nervous, but I came home and I ended up being okay, and so I was really grateful for the care that I got in America. So yeah, that was kind of my first story. It was a pretty wild way to end the summer, coming home, going straight to the hospital for 3 nights, and yeah, that was the first part of it. Cool. So now on to the second story, and the story of why most of you are here. To be honest, I never posted about the first one, so a lot of people don't even know that I was in the hospital after the summer, which is totally fine, not a big deal. But yeah, the second story is kind of more relevant because it was more of an accident, and I also got a chance to experience Mexican healthcare. So the story about that, for our job, so I guess going all the way back to the beginning, again, I got my coffee. I probably need another sip first. For our job, every year you do the job, you have a chance to win an incentive trip it's called Sizzler, to somewhere in Mexico. It's tropical, all-inclusive, really great place to go, just to celebrate a year's hard work. Working 80 hours a week over the summer, it's definitely a nice celebratory week to kind of recharge and celebrate your successes. Anyway, I won the trip, and it was awesome because I hadn't won the trip the previous year, and that's I guess a whole other story, but I won the trip this year, and so I was super excited. I know with traveling in the pandemic, it was not received well from all of my friends, and I had to learn to just kind of choose, do I want to do what I want to do, or I don't know. There was a lot of back and forth, like, do I go, do I not go? But I decided to go. I mean, there were masks. We did like hand sanitizer, all that stuff. So I felt comfortable enough to go, especially with my health and the fact that I wasn't going to be around any elderly people. Anyway, I don't need to explain it. That was just my decision to go. So I ended up going, and it was super fun. I got to sit by a beach. The beach is my favorite place in the world. I love just hearing the ocean and relaxing, and so I did a lot of that. And the trip is typically 6 days, so it's 6 days and 5 nights. And you can do whatever you want. We went like banana boating one day, and some people went surfing. It really just depends on what you want to do. And so I really like to dance, and I like to dance and hang out with friends. And so one night I went to so this was the night that it happened. The accident was the third night. So the first 2 nights I was fine. I woke up the third day, and things were going as Sizzler goes. And we I was really tired the night before, or that day, because I was on this thing called a booze cruise, which basically was it was a 12-hour long sail across the ocean, wherever Puerto Vallarta is, because that's where we were, in Puerto Vallarta. And we're riding around all day. I actually didn't even drink that much on the booze cruise. Like, it's supposed to be like, oh, you drink a lot and you're boating around with your friends, but I just felt not too great from the night before, so I had like maybe one drink that whole time. But it was 12 hours in the sun. It was a lot. And I mean, we had like quesadillas, and we got to eat a lot of food, so that was cool. But I get back, we sailed at 9 a.m., so I had to be up at 8 a.m. or something like that. We sailed at like 9, and then the boat didn't get back until 8 p.m., so it was an all-day marathon, and I wasn't prepared for that. I thought it was going to be probably like 7 or 8 hours, so the extra 4 hours kind of just kept taking a lot out of me. And then we had a team dinner at 7:30, so get back at 8. It was supposed to be like 7:30. We had a team dinner set up for us, like paid for by my manager. And so I had to basically rush to my room, change, take a taxi downtown. It it was just very rushed, and I mean, I'm super grateful for it. So we went to the team dinner. I was a little late, but it was okay. And then we walked straight over to this club. So mind you, it was like I had 4 hours of sleep the night before. I was on this booze cruise all day, and then we get to this like team dinner. Basically, it was just go, 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 go. And that's how my life normally is, so I had a fun time either way, but it was just a lot for the day. And the setup's important because I am thinking back on it as to like how it all happened in the first place, and I think that's probably why I was just exhausted, and again, I kind of put my social needs above my health needs, and I've done that before, so that's another mistake that I'm learning to work with. But then we get to this club. It's called La Vaquita, and long story short, I don't know, I was just wanting to dance, and there was a couple people on a table. So the table was probably, I have a dollar right here, I guess this is a good example. So the table was long and skinny like this, alright? And so there's me, and then another girl, and then maybe one more, I don't remember, but I definitely remember there was a girl behind me here. And I was dancing, and I had sneakers on that I've used all summer. The traction is pretty horrible. And so, I mean, I'd had a little bit to drink that day, probably like 2 or 3, not too much. I wasn't sober, but I wasn't super hammered, you know? And so I'm right here. It's about 11 p.m., not even late in the night. And what happens is that my left foot slips off the table and my right foot stayed on the table. So when I fell, and this might hurt some of you, I'm sorry, but I guess I'll show on this side. I hit the table right on the corner, and then I fell off and twisted my ankle, and then I fell down. When it first happened, I wasn't very, like, aware that I had just seriously injured myself. Like, it's kind of like when you stub your toe. It hurts really bad for like 5 minutes, and then you keep walking on it and the pain kind of subsides. So that's how I kind of felt. It was like, oh man, wow, that really hurt, but I'll be okay. Like, I just I don't know, I assumed that I was going to be totally fine. And then I wasn't fine. So I fell down. Everybody's looking at me like, bro, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. So I get back up. People just kind of go back to doing whatever they do. I was fine. And then I'm walking around and I'm just noticing, like, oh, wow, this still really hurts. Like, this is not a normal fall. Like, I'm actually still in a lot of pain. So I was walking around probably for like another hour, and then I kind of just called it. I was like, all right, I don't think I'm doing well. Like, I should probably go home and just sleep it off. And so I go home, or no, so we called a cab. And when I first noticed something was actually wrong is when I couldn't sit in the cab normally. So right now I'm sitting on a wooden chair with pillows. Like, that wouldn't have been possible when this happened. So this is November 30th, 2 months ago. Yeah, that's when it happened. So I'm sitting on like I'm in the cab. I'm trying to sit, and it hurts so bad to sit on my butt. It just hurt really bad. So I had to kind of like do one of these, like, I was sitting like this. So I was sitting like that, and the other two people I was riding with home didn't really notice. So I get home, and luckily enough, at the resort, there was a guy, an employee there that was in a golf cart. Not planned. I didn't call him randomly. I was just like, hey, can you wheel me back to my room? And he did. So that was, I guess, a luck of fate. It was really nice of him, because the walk from the lobby to the rooms was a good distance. It was pretty far. So it was really nice of him to just wheel me back. And at the time, I saw one of my friends in the lobby, and I kind of yelled out, hey, I need some ice, I fell. But I didn't really explain my situation because I was riding away in a golf cart. So there's we have chaperones on this trip, so I called one of the chaperones. I called Trey. His name's Trey, and he had to deal with a lot of other stuff that night, and so he didn't really think that my situation was that serious, and I didn't think it was either. I just knew that I probably needed some ice just to calm down and heal. And so what he did was he was taking care of some other stuff, so he came into my room about an hour and a half later, and I was laying down, and it just kept hurting more and more. Like, at this point, I knew I really needed some ice. It was pretty bad, but I didn't think I needed to, like, go to a hospital, you know? So I go. He's like, sorry, I didn't get the ice. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff. I was like, totally fine, not a big deal. The question then was, do I show him the injury? Because, right as I got in the room, my roommate was there, and she looked at it and was like, yeah, it's pretty bad. And I finally saw it in the mirror. And guys, the bruise was black. my butt was super black. It was bad. And so I was trying to debate if I should show Trey or not, because I mean, he's a guy, but I wasn't sure if I needed to go to hospitals. It was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel weird about it. It was more so a respect thing. Finally, he called another one of the chaperones or sales support over, Melanie, and she took a look at it, and we kind of went back and forth, like, do I sleep it off? Do I go to the hospital? And I was fine sleeping it off until I laid down, and it just kept getting worse. And I was like, okay, maybe I should go at least get it checked out. So I go, and we at this point it's like 3 a.m. We wake up another chaperone because she's from Puerto Vallarta, and she picked out the hospital to go to. I went to Hospital Hoya, and so it was a bilingual hospital that was private. So that kind of probably did shape my experience a little bit. It's meant for tourists like me to do stuff like this. And so, here, one sec. We get in the cab, or we get in her truck, drive over. At this point, I am exhausted. Like, all I wanted to do was just sleep. And I was, like, annoyed that I had to go somewhere else. Like, I knew I needed to, but I was so annoyed that I had to do anything besides sleep at this point. And so I get there, and I just fall asleep. Like, they put me on a table, and I had, like, a mask where it's like a gator mask, so you could put it up and keep it around your neck. So I put it over my eyes, and then just fell asleep. Well, I tried to. It was pretty hard, too. It was a pretty hard table. And then Melanie took care of a lot of paperwork. I really couldn't tell you what happened the first night I went in, because at this point it was like 3:30, 4 a.m. and I'm super tired, and it's kind of just a blur because I was just out of it at this point. And then they took me over to get some x-rays, and they put me into a hospital room to stay there overnight. And I was like, okay. they put IVs in, and then the doctor comes in because they had to wake up the doctor on call. He came in at like 5 in the morning and just said, "Yep, it's broken. Okay, bye." Like, he didn't tell me much about it. He just said, "Okay, yep, your hip is fractured. Bye." And I was like, "What?" I was so surprised. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know how that worked. I didn't know the healing like, I didn't know anything about hip fractures. So I get there, or I'm sitting in this bed, like, okay, whatever, I'll just deal with this tomorrow. So I go to sleep, and then I am under the impression that I'll be there for a night, maybe two. I ended up being there for 6 nights and 7 days. The first couple nights, they gave me tons of pain medication. They took a CT scan, an X-ray, an MRI, which I'd never done. All of these I'd never done before. And then they also X-rayed my ankle, because I actually did mess up my ankle pretty bad. I just ended up just spraining it. I didn't break it, thank goodness. So yeah, they took all these different scans the next day, and at this point, no one at the resort knows that I'm like in the hospital, except for like 2 people. So my manager actually came and spent the day with me and like tried to calm me down, because I was like, I didn't even go on this trip last year, and now I'm in the hospital. Like, what the F? Like, what's wrong with this? And he was just calming me down, like, yo, it's okay, life happens. And it was awesome. He really helped me out. So thank you, Shane, for everything you did for me there, because it helped me so much. So yeah, I'm in the hospital, I'm getting all these scans, and then the doctor comes back in and kind of he comes in and he says, yeah, so do you ever break your hip before? This injury looks kind of old. And I looked at Melanie, because she was there with me. We were both like, no, it doesn't ring any bells, no. And he was like, okay, yeah, it's fractured, and then just left. I was like, well, what now? Like, I didn't know how I was getting home. I didn't know how long I was gonna be out of commission. I didn't know anything. I was just like, frick. Luckily, the people at Hospital Hoya were amazing. Like, most of them spoke enough English to be able to communicate with me. Whether it was like, this was for pain, or it's time for a shower. You know, they would they were bilingual, so it was good enough. I know in retrospect it would have been awesome if I had spoken Spanish, but I don't. So that was something I dealt with. But other than that, I mean, they were really nice. They were always attentive. What I liked about the Mexican hospital versus the one that I stayed at in September was they were attentive whenever I needed them, but they actually let me sleep. So like, they wouldn't come in. And I know they're different injuries, so they might have done it differently, but basically, like, the last time they would see me, it's at like 10 p.m. and then I wouldn't see him again till like 5 or 6 a.m. And maybe they did during the night. I was just passed out all the time. So, but it just felt like less invasive, you know? Like in the American hospital, it was like, oh, I gotta take all your vitals every 4 hours. And here I at least had like an 8-hour break. So, I mean, they were taking my vitals, but it just seemed less invasive. It was like a pulse ox on your finger instead of, and like a little cuff instead of like a big cuff that you'd put your arm into. And, yeah, it just seemed more like, the vibe, like, they were definitely taking care of me, but more so like, oh, you'll figure this out. Like, you'll heal. So it seemed I didn't feel like I was getting babied as much, if that makes sense, which I appreciated. I thought it was cool that they were definitely super helpful, but they kind of let me heal on my own time. And so it was interesting, because the doctor would come in, and I didn't know how long I was going to be there. They did not really give me much information. They'd come in and say, hey, well, you're probably going to be here for 5 or 6 more days. I said, probably. Okay, well, what about 3? Because at this point, I just wanted to get home. Like, I did not want to be in a hospital for 2 weeks, you know? And he was like, maybe 3. So there was a lot of unknowns. They forced me to take a shower every day, which was probably good, but I didn't like it. 'Cause, basically, each day, the swelling, the actual injury, and oh dang, there's 15 minutes in. Okay, there was a lot that happened. So I just had a giant hematoma. Basically, a hematoma. It's like a bruise times 100, a blood clot, and so I had a hematoma right on the right bone of where I sit. So that's why it was so hard for me to sit, because there was a giant blood clot blocking my butt and chairs. So it was just really hard to walk, because Normally, like, if it was an arm injury, like, I just pace it up and I'd be fine. But it was, like, right in the center of my body, so it was hard to do really anything because I couldn't walk. Like, my legs were fine, but I just, like, couldn't move them. And so I had a walker, and I'd go to the shower each day. And the first day, they had me take a sitting shower, and that was actually a lot harder than forcing myself to stand up. I lost all my energy. Speaking of, I lost all of my energy. I was just laying there healing. It sucked. It was awesome because a bunch of people came and visited me in the hospital the last day with COVID. I was in a totally separate unit both the times that I was in the hospital, so I didn't really even see or interact with COVID patients. But because of the regulations, only one person could be in there at a time. And so my friend, like, I'd have a friend visit and then go switch out with the other friend. And it was really nice of him on the last day. Shout out to anybody who came and visited me. That really boosted my spirits. Anyway, so I fell on Sunday, and then we finally figured out a time that I could leave, which was the next Sunday. The hospital and the insurance. This insurance I actually used through Southwestern. We have an accident insurance policy. You pay $100, and then it covers up to. To be honest, I'm not actually sure. I think it's either $15,000 or $25,000. So lucky me, it was all covered, so that was super clutch. Anyway, but they wouldn't let me. The hospital wouldn't let me leave without a nurse on the flight, because the question was, how can I sit on a plane for 5, 6, 7 hours if I can't even sit on a chair? So the hardest part was figuring out a way to get me home without being in a ton of pain, or because I can't stand on a plane for 6 hours. And so basically what they did is they had a travel nurse fly down to Mexico and then fly back with me to America. So she flew back with me, so basically I had to wait 2 or 3 days for her to fly down and then get there and then fly back with her. Penny, she was awesome too. And then Melanie actually volunteered to fly back with me to Colorado and stay with me for a couple days while I was recovering, so shout out to her as well. Like, so many great people in my life. But, so Sunday finally is the day I can leave. And let me tell you, it was probably one of the worst days of my life. Flying, I was in pain the entire time. I was trying to take pain. I opted to not take because they prescribed me a lot of medications. I was on a narcotic, but I didn't want to take it on the plane. In retrospect, I probably should have, because I was in so much pain. And yeah, now I just have this extra strength Tylenol. That's all I took, and that's what I use now. But it was not fun. I just tried to not think about it, but I was just in a lot of pain. And then finally, I was on a connecting flight too, so that was even worse. I could have waited for a direct flight, but then I would have had to wait another day in the hospital, so I kind of just took the L and said, I don't care if I'm gonna, like, I basically just took the pain. I didn't care how much pain, and I still don't regret it. Like, it was worth getting home the day before, or the day after, or the day before. And then Melanie flew back with me, and she drove I had my car parked at the airport, so she drove me back to Shane's house, where I would quarantine until I got a COVID test and it was negative, all of that stuff. And so the next day, I'm in crutches. Oh, shoot. Sorry, my computer just died. I was in not died, it just blacked out. I was in crutches, I was healing, and Melanie, and then this girl Vivian, she was coming to take care of me as well. They came and took my car to go get food for the day, and then someone ran into it. So my car got totaled the day I got back, or the day after I got back. So it was a fun surprise, At this point, I had already gone through so much that I was just like, all right, well, we'll figure it out later, I didn't even care that much. Actually, I really didn't care at all. It was nice because Vivian and Melanie calmed me down about it, but I was like, all right, whatever. I can't even drive. I can't even sit. Fast forward to the next day, I went to an orthopedic doctor in America, and I get there, and this whole time I'm under the impression, all right, I have a broken hip. How do I rehab this? It's going to take a long time. The nurse on the flight was telling me it's going to take like 6 months to heal. I was just like, oh, frick. Like, all right, this is going to be a journey. And then I get there, and the guy, this appointment I'm planning on being like 2 hours, right? I'm planning on all these CAT scans, MRI, like all this stuff. I get there. This dude, he just feels on different parts of my pelvis, like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? He's like, and then, I didn't have any of the images from I still actually don't have the images from the hospital. Uh, the communication between countries wasn't great, so I still don't have any copies. But Melanie took one on her phone of the X-ray, and so I showed this doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, that already looks healed." I was like, "What? Excuse me?" And he's like, "Yeah. I mean, do you ever run track or anything?" Like, "Yeah, I ran track. I ran pretty avidly in high school." In middle school, and he said, "Yeah, well, sometimes what can happen, because see, it's already healed because there's a big space in it, and if it wasn't healed, um, there wouldn't be a big space in it in the X-ray. Basically, the fluid was already gone. The edge. It's basically what happened was that in high school, it might not have even been track. Like this is just the best educated guess that me and the doctor both had, but the hamstrings are attached to the hip bone, right? And so whenever you run track or do anything really physical, sometimes your hip bones or your hamstrings, I mean, they stretch a lot. And so I ran hurdles, so they were always like stretching up and down, up and down. So they were stretching all the time. And he said probably what happened is that it stretched so hard that it pulled a piece of bone off of my hip. The craziest part though is that I never noticed that. I never went to a doctor or hospital, never got an x-ray on it when I was younger. I missed a couple meets and I wore compression tape, but I kind of just waited for it to heal, kind of like any other track injury or athletic injury. When you're in high school, you don't go get x-rays all the time. Sometimes you do, but not normally. So it was never that painful, you know? I was very, like, the whole thing is still so shocking to me because I never knew that could happen. He said, yeah, it's kind of common sometimes, but I just never knew that could happen. So he said that what he thinks happened is that I ruptured my hamstring. And so the PT and the entire healing process completely changed at that moment because what I thought was going to be a very long 6-month recovery was just a small tear in my hamstring. So I was like, okay, cool. I mean, I was super stoked about it, but it was it was really interesting. I just didn't know that was going to happen. So what I ended up doing was getting PT twice a week for about 8 different sessions, so about a month and a half. And my PT was awesome. My mom had gotten a hip replacement the day that I fell, so we did PT together, and so we had the same PT, and we joke about each other in our sessions. And his name's Hogan. He was amazing. He helped my ankle as well. But yeah, this is long story short. Oh my gosh, super long story short. The injury ended up being, I still don't even know if it was a hamstring injury because. Honestly, the hematoma, that was the worst part. Sitting, after about 3 weeks, I could finally sit. And then taking Tylenol, I still do it. Like, it still hurts a little bit, and so does my ankles, so I've just been taking extra strength Tylenol, just trying not to, I can't run, I probably won't go skiing this season, I probably won't go run a marathon, but yeah, he said just kind of take it easy and slow your way into it, and so yeah, that's kind of the injury, is ruptured hamstring that's healing, but the hematoma, basically I just had to wait for it to dissolve back into my body because it was a big blood clot. And so I did that, and I got the hematomas finally. It's still a little bad, but it's getting absorbed still, and it feels all right. Like I'm sitting, I mean, I'm on pillows, but I can sit, I can lay down, I can walk. I could even jog. He said I could go try to jog again. Hogan did my PT. But yeah, what went from I'm just still so shocked because what went from a huge like life-changing injury kind of wasn't as big of a deal. Like it sucked, and I definitely wouldn't recommend falling in Mexico. It's a story that I'll have forever. The nurses in Mexico were making fun of me too. They were saying like, wow, this is going to be a story you tell your kids one day, which I definitely will. Yeah, I'm just super grateful for all the people that supported me throughout both times I was in the hospital, that gave me words of guidance. And I guess I wanted to end this whole, oh my gosh, it was like a 50-minute video. How I wanted to end the video was just kind of talking about how I'm going to perform going forward. Because what I learned from both of those things was that I need to take care of my body better. I mean, they were both kind of random, but I definitely want to let stress kind of take control of me and stress. I've always gotten stress acne. Like, I always worry. Like, I've been an avid worrier in my life. And I've never been diagnosed with anxiety or anything like that, so I don't think it's that serious, but just enough to where, like, it's, I think about it. And so, it kind of taught me to slow down, or these times taught me to slow down and just really listen to myself if I need to sleep, if I need to eat something, or if I want to binge and treat myself, like just taking my health more seriously. And I've decided also to not drink for 2021. While I never pictured, or like, I don't think that alcohol really, I mean, it played a part in both of the hospitalizations, I think, but I don't think, like, I probably might have still ended up there, if I wasn't drinking. So I never thought I had a problem. I still don't think I have an issue with alcohol at all. I can control myself. I know how to handle my liquor. But it's something that I've used for a long time as a crutch, to talk to people, to approach boys I like, just whatever I wanted. Like, I've used alcohol definitely as a social crutch before, a way to fit in with people. I've never just casually drank. It was either by myself, or it was either don't drink at all or get drunk. I've never been the one to, like, oh, let's go get a beer. Like, if I'm gonna get one beer, I'm gonna get three. So, yeah, I just kind of decided, like, falling in the second time was when I kind of first thought about, like, oh, what if I challenged myself to not drink this whole year? And I didn't, like, I drank a couple more times after I was in the hospital, but each time I just felt horrible the next day. I just felt like a really bad hangover. Since my body was still recovering, like, the dehydration actually made my hematoma really painful. And so, yeah, my butt was throbbing. Anyway, that's TMI. This is all TMI. But yeah, I've just kind of decided that I think it'd be cool to challenge myself this year to not drink alcohol and see how to make connections other ways. And I think that if I had never fallen in the hospital or fallen in Mexico, I wouldn't be doing this right now. So while alcohol wasn't the sole cause, I do think that it definitely had an effect on my future. So I'm very grateful for the care that I got in both places. It was cool to see how little COVID really had an effect on my hospital stays. The only thing was the visitation rights. Other than that, I didn't see anybody. I didn't hear about it at all. I was in totally separate wings. And I know part of that is being lucky enough to have insurance and being lucky enough to, yeah, like, my position in life gave me that opportunity. So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, I'd say that's kind of it. This is a freaking 45-minute video. So if you've watched this whole thing, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed my little friend hanging out over here, my ostrich guy. If you have any questions, feel free to message me, talk to me. Love to talk more about this, dive deeper into my decision to not drink alcohol this year, things like that. But yeah, thanks for listening. Catch you on the flip side.